This is your USMNT Abroad weekend update from September 27th to September 29th of 2024. Hello, if you're new here, I'm Filippo, and welcome to Tactical Manager TV, and welcome to the US Men's National Team Abroad series, where every single Monday we update you on how the Yanks did abroad over the weekend. Now, this week, Mauricio Pochettino will release his very first US Men's National Team roster, a very special roster, and as always, we're going to do a live reaction here on YouTube, but I have a question for you. You know how when we do a US Men's National Team live watch along, we have the game live watch along, and then the day after, we release a 7 Things We Learned video? And that's my question. Would you like for us to do the live reaction to the roster release and the day following it, or 2 days after, release a 7 Things We Learned, since this is a very special roster, and because this channel is a bit of a dictatorship mixed with a democracy? For example, if you guys want to do it, if the people want it, and the dictator approves it, we'll do it. And you have the right to vote in the comment section down below if you want us to do the 7 Things We Learned or not. But if the dictator vetoes it, your vote means nothing.
Don't worry, I'm not gonna veto it.
And if you also want to help the channel, make sure to hit the like button in this video. Help us hit 1,000 likes. It helps quite a bit. And make sure to follow us on Instagram. We already post there quite a bit, but we're going to ramp up the content there as well, as we are seeking to hit 20,000 followers as soon as possible. So make sure to follow us on Instagram. It helps a lot. But don't do what I say what I do. Or, no, that's wrong. Do what I say, don't do what I do, or do what I do and don't do what I say. Whatever. Start the episode. As always, we start with the top 5 leagues in Europe, the first one being the English Premier League. So let's go to England, and why don't we start by talking about Chris Richards and Matt Turner from Crystal Palace. And on Saturday, Turner stayed on the bench the full 90 minutes, as expected, for Crystal Palace during their 2-1 loss to Everton. Now, unfortunately, Chris Richards was not available due to a hamstring injury. He's expected to miss several weeks and will not be available for the US Men's National Team October camp, as he is expected to return early November. And understand that Chris Richards is also questionable for the November camp that the US Men's National Team will have, which is the CONCACAF Nations League quarterfinals. This really sucks. He is technically our best center back, and we won't have him in October, and he's questionable for November. All right, but let's move on from Chris Richards and Matt Turner and talk about Anthony Robinson from Fulham. And on Saturday, A-Rob started and played the full 90 minutes for Fulham during their 1-0 win over Nottingham Forest. Robinson was once again rock solid. I'm going to start calling him Mr. Consistent. I really don't know when was the last time that he played poorly in the English Premier League. I honestly can't remember. But then again, I still think he should stay with Fulham despite the transfer rumors. Let's be real, as good as he has been for Fulham, that's his level. That's where A-Rob should stay. And he was fantastic once again this weekend, helped him hold a clean sheet and get the 1-0 win over Nottingham Forest. After Robinson, I would have talked about Tyler Adams from Bournemouth, but there are no updates on his injury. As far as we know, he's not training yet. We don't know when Tyler Adams will be back. At first, he was supposed to be back late September, but clearly he's not back yet. Essentially what I'm saying is I don't know what's going on with Tyler Adams. I'm sorry. Time to leave England and go to Italy so we can talk about the Americans that play in the Italian Serie A, the first division in Italy. Why don't we start with Christian Pulisic and Yunus Musa from Milan. And on Friday, Christian Pulisic started and played 63 minutes for Milan during their 3-0 win over Lecce. As for Yunus Musa, he started off the bench and was subbed in the 63rd minute when Milan already had a 3-0 lead. And he did okay. Yunus Musa was fine. He ended up having to play as a left back for the last 10 minutes or so because the left back that replaced Theo Hernandez got a red card. So that kind of hurt Yunus Musa a little bit because he had to play out of his position. And look, I want to say one thing about Musa. It really does feel like he's stagnated when it comes to his development, but I could be wrong there. That's just my gut feeling of what I'm seeing. So you can let me know your thoughts on Yunus Musa. Has he stagnated or not when it comes to his development as a player? With that said, how did Christian Pulisic do? Well, you know, death, taxes, and Christian Pulisic getting a goal contribution lately. He has been on fire. and he has shown no signs of slowing down at this point. He scored for Milan off a rebound, their third goal, putting the nail in the coffin for this match. This is the fourth consecutive game where he scores for Milan. He scored against Venezia, Liverpool, Inter Milan, and now Lecce. For this game, he was then subbed out around minute 63, mainly because Milan had a 3-0 lead and they have a crucial Champions League game during this midweek against Bayer Leverkusen. Christian Pulisic now has 5 goals and 2 assists with 559 minutes played this season in the Serie A and Champions League. He's averaging a goal contribution every 79 minutes. It's still early in the season, so it's a small data sample. However, at this rate, if he keeps it up, he will get around 35 to 40 goal contributions, which is nuts. And of course, if you get 35 to 40 goal contributions for Milan, there will be English Premier League clubs interested in signing you. And with that said, he should only leave Milan when he is old, washed, and they no longer want him. He should stay in Italy, become a club legend, score a lot, win a few trophies. Plus, Italy has better food and weather than England. Once you leave fish and chips for pizza, there's no going back. Ask anybody. I do also want to say, when it comes to history of the game, accomplishments, trophies, Milan is a bigger club than any club in England. And this is not controversial. I'm not saying they're better than Manchester City. They're definitely not better than Manchester City right now, or Arsenal, or whatever, but they definitely have more accomplishments, more history. They're a bigger club. So as I said, Christian Pulisic has to stay in Milan, become a club legend, which if he stays for another, 6-7 seasons, why wouldn't he become one? If he continues to get 20 to 30 goal contributions, win a Serie A here, win maybe an Europa League, Italian Cup, why not? Then when you're old and washed, come back to MLS. But that's enough of Christian Pulisic. Now let's talk about Timothy Weah and Wes McKennie from Juventus. And on Saturday, McKennie started and played 62 minutes for Juve during their 2-0 win over Genoa. McKennie did fine. He played his role in the midfield. He's not really meant to be the protagonist of this team, and I thought he did just fine for what Thiago Motta wants him to do. As for Tim Weah, he was not available due to a calf injury. He is now questionable for their midweek Champions League game and even for the US men's national team October camp. Just a friendly reminder that Tim Weah already missed the September camp for the United States, also due to injury. But the big takeaway from this specific game, and obviously the past 2 to 3 games of Juventus, is that Wes McKennie is a legit starter for them right now. He actually got the starting spot back once again. And as Alexander the Great once said, never quit. Quitting is for the losers. That's exactly what he said, and that's what we can learn from this. McKennie totally gets his inspiration from Alexander the Great, and he believes that quitting is for losers. That is totally not a fake quote that I just made up. Next up is Gianluca Busio from Venezia. And on Sunday, Busio started and played the full 90 minutes for Venezia during their 2-1 loss to Roma. And you know what? Personally, I thought he had a good game. The goal that Venezia scored was off a rebound from a shot from Busio that hit the post. He also created 2 chances, and all of that happened without getting many touches on the ball. Roma held 70% of ball possession, so it's not like Venezia had that many opportunities, but they were actually quite effective in the game. They could have pulled a draw, maybe even a win, but ultimately Roma got a 2-1 win. Busio on defense also did fine. He got a bit unlucky on Roma's first goal because it deflected off him. It was a long-range shot that deflected off Busio and went in, but that's not really his fault. All I'll say is this: Busio has put out another strong performance in the Serie A. And even if Venezia gets relegated, which is very much possible, I think he'll be able to stay in the Serie A himself, finding a new club if he continues to play at this level. Time to leave Italy and go to Germany, so we can talk about the Americans in the Bundesliga. The first one being Gio Reyna from Borussia Dortmund. He is back in training with Dortmund, and he could be back as early as this midweek in the Champions League. Now, would he get minutes? I don't know. What I mean by being back is making the bench, which means he could still make the US men's national team roster. He's still questionable. He might not make it to the October roster, but it looks like Gio Reyna is closer and closer to returning, unlike Tyler Adams. But now let's talk about Joe Scally from Borussia Mönchengladbach and Pefok from Union Berlin, because they clashed over the weekend. And on Saturday, Joe Scally started and played the full 90 minutes for Gladbach, helping them hold a clean sheet and get a 1-0 win over Union Berlin. Scally was actually quite good. He was rock solid defensively as a right back and provided some decent support on offense. He's usually really good on defense, to be fair, but very limited when it comes to offense. But during this game, he did well, in my opinion. As for Pifak, he started for Union Berlin and played 79 minutes, and all I will say is he barely did anything. He was just kind of there, you know? Just standing there, doing nothing. Also, there was no service. With that said, the next player that we were going to talk about would be Kevin Paredes from Wolfsburg, but he is also still injured. He should have been back like 2 weeks ago, but he's still not back, so there's nothing to talk about there. Let's skip Kevin Paredes and talk about Leonard Maloney from Heidenheim. And on Saturday, Maloney started off the bench and was subbed in the 89th minute, so he pretty much stayed on the bench the full game for Heidenheim during their 2-0 win over Mainz. Okay, time to leave Germany and go to Spain so we can talk about the Americans in La Liga. The first one being Luca de la Torre from Celta Vigo, and he was not available for them once again this weekend because of an ankle injury, allegedly. I mean, they wanted to get rid of him, so I don't know if he's not making the team because he's actually injured or because they just don't want him there. But again, he hasn't played a single minute all season long. Actually, I believe he hasn't even made the bench yet this season for Celta Vigo. That's all I have to say about Luca de la Torre, so let's talk about Johnny Cardoso from Real Betis. And on Sunday, Johnny started off the bench and was subbed in the final 10 minutes for Real Betis during their 1-0 win over Espanyol. They had a midweek La Liga game that he started, then over the weekend he came off the bench, so I don't really know what's going on in regards to that rotation. One thing's for sure though, Lo Celso has been balling out for Betis this season. He was a tremendous signing that they got, and he has been nothing short of incredible. So that's enough for the Americans that play in Spain. Time to go to France to talk about the Americans that play in Ligue 1. The first one being Balogun from Monaco. And on Saturday, Balogun started and played the full 90 minutes for Monaco during their 2-1 win over Montpellier. He had a very good performance for the second consecutive weekend. Balogun was making good runs on and off the ball, looking dangerous, seemed to improve his combination play also. At least in this game, it looked really good, and he actually scored for the second consecutive weekend. The goal scored in the first half was after a through ball was delivered to Balogun, followed by a great first touch and a left-footed finish. During the second half, he hit the post once, set up his teammate for an easy finish that should have been an assist, but the goalkeeper saved it. Once again, he was great. The only aspect of his game that still bothers me is his finishing, as he continues to underperform his expected goals. That has to improve. However, in my opinion, he's quite clearly our best 9. The best 9 that the US men's national team currently has, even though Josh Sargent and Ricardo Pepi are great options as well, and they actually played very well this weekend. And we'll talk about Pepi and Sargent later in this video, but to me, Balogun is still quite clearly the best 9 the US men's national team has. Next up would have been Caleb Wiley from Strasbourg, but he is also currently injured. Actually, he's dealing with a knee tendonitis, so he's not available for Strasbourg this weekend. So let's skip on Caleb Wiley and talk about Mark McKenzie from Toulouse and Tanner Tessman from Lyon, because they clashed over the weekend. And on Sunday, McKenzie started and played the full 90 minutes for Toulouse during their 2-1 loss to Lyon. I thought McKenzie did mostly fine throughout this game, and even in the late goal that they conceded, he actually made a crucial tackle to save them, but the rest of the defense let him down and they conceded right after his superb tackle to stop Lyon from scoring. As for Tanner Tessman, he got his very first start for Lyon in Ligue 1. He played 67 minutes and they got a 2-1 win. But how did he do? And let's put it this way, Tanner Tessman was actually quite poor during the first half. He looked lost, didn't know when to press, jogged around in possession without really showing up for the ball, slow on the turn. It was bad. I also don't think he can play at a fast tempo. It's just not his player profile, and I don't think he has the ability to do so. However, I thought he did fine in the second half. He bounced back fairly well, which is quite encouraging. I mean, look, he struggled early on during the first half for Lyon, but then he quickly sorted things out, and I find that encouraging over the long term, right? If you only look at the long term, this is encouraging. He is with a new team, new league, new coach, new players, new country. Give him time. I am actually cautiously optimistic here because he was able to bounce back in the second half so quickly. All I'm saying is be patient with Tanner Tessman. It looked really bad in the first half, and it looked fairly good in the second half. But again, It's a new country, new club, new league, new coach. He'll learn, he'll grow, and he'll probably improve. However, I will die on this hill. I still think Tenor Testament is much more well suited to be a center back. Now let's go to the Eredivisie and talk about the Americans that play in the Netherlands. The first four being the guys that play for PSV. Malik Tillman, Ricardo Pepi, Serginho Dest, and Richie Ledesma. And on Saturday, Ricardo Pepi and Malik Tillman both started for PSV during their 2-0 win over Willem II, or Willem II. I don't really know how to say it. Tillman was pulled off at halftime, and there could be a few reasons for that. One being that he was not playing well and the score was still 0-0. Tillman sort of wasted a sitter from close range early in the game and looked too casual at times, which is kind of normal for him actually. Another reason could be that they have a very important Champions League game during the midweek and he was just being rested. Personally, I was watching the game. I think it's a little bit of both. One, he was dropping a stinker and the smell was terrible, right? And you don't want that stinker just like smelling next to you. The other reason is they were actually resting a few players like Luuk de Jong, for example. That's why Ricardo Pepi got the start and played the full 90 minutes. So I do think Tillman was pulled out a little bit because he was playing like crap and because they were resting him for the Champions League midweek game. As for Ricardo Pepi, because Luuk de Jong was being rested, he got his first start of the season and played the full 90 minutes, and he also took full advantage of it by scoring a brace. Yes, PSV got a 2-0 win, and Pepi scored both goals. The first one was off a nice header early in the second half. The second goal was a one-hit finish off a low cross. If I had to describe Pepi's performance in just one word, I would call it efficient. He took care of business and was highly efficient. None of these goals were tap-ins. They required great off-the-ball movement and finishing ability to get it done. And look, I get it. Luuk de Jong is a better player than Ricardo Pepi, so I understand why he plays more. But at the same time, Luuk de Jong is 34. PSV needs to give Pepi more minutes. They'll still get wins. Pepi can clearly deliver in the Eredivisie. Give him more minutes, let him develop. Luuk de Jong might not be around playing when he's like 36, 37 at a high level. So prepare Pepi. If you don't give him minutes, he won't develop. Because you never know. Luuk de Jong might be heading into a nursing home soon next to Hector Salamanca. By the way, Breaking Bad, fantastic show. I watched it years ago and I rewatched it like last year. If you haven't watched Breaking Bad, go watch it. As for Serginho Dest, he was not available due to a torn ACL. We all know that. He's expected to be back in January. And Richie Ledesma was not available due to a knock, even though I don't think he'll continue to start for PSV, and Ledesma should probably seek a loan this January. Still in the Eredivisie, we have two Americans that play for Utrecht, and they are Taylor Booth and Paxton Aronson. And on Sunday, Paxton and Taylor Booth both started off the bench for Utrecht during their 2-1 win over AZ Alkmaar. Paxton came off the bench during halftime and he scored their second goal to give Utrecht the win, and it was actually a beautiful goal. As for Taylor Booth, he came off the bench around minute 84. Utrecht currently sits in second place in the Eredivisie, 5 points behind PSV, but with one game in hand. So sure, Paxton and Booth are benched at Utrecht, but Paxton Aronson still gets regular minutes off the bench, and Utrecht is not a bad team. They're literally the second best team in the Eredivisie right now, only behind PSV. Now we're going to go back to England and talk about the Americans that play in the EFL Championship, which is the second division of England. The first one being Josh Sargent from Norwich. And on Saturday, Sargent started and played the full 90 minutes for Norwich during their 3-2 win over Derby County. Sargent wasn't really getting much service this game when it came to goal-scoring opportunities. What do I mean by that? The playmakers weren't really playmaking for Sargent, the center forward that's meant to score the goals. For that reason, he decided to be the one providing service to his teammates. Sargent got 2 assists and was great for Norwich during this 3-2 win. The first assist was off a low cross in a hustle play from Sargent. The ball did go out, but you play to the whistle, and Sargent played to the whistle and got the assist. Now the second assist was actually beautiful. It was a true beauty. It was a trivela pass from Josh Sargent. If you don't know what a trivela pass is, and I'm saying it in Portuguese, not in Spanish, I don't know how to say it in Spanish, it's when you pass it with the outside of your foot. It's something Roberto Carlos was famous for doing. Many other players do it. Vinicius Jr. gets a lot of assists with his trivela pass, and that's what Josh Sargent did, and he got the second assist. Now, I'm happy for Sargent. Getting 2 assists is great, but he hasn't scored for the past 4 games. So what I'm hoping to see from Sargent next weekend is a goal. With that said, let's move on from Josh Sargent and go talk about Brenden Aaronson from Leeds and Haji Wright from Coventry because they clashed over the weekend. And on Saturday, Brenden Aaronson started and played the full 90 minutes for Leeds during their 3-0 win over Coventry. As for Haji Wright, he started off the bench and was sent in the 61st minute for Coventry. Look, Haji dropped a stinker last weekend, and he has been off to a rough start of the season, so maybe he did actually get benched. As for this game, I didn't watch it. There were other games on at the same time, but, you know, the Leeds fans, they praised Brenden Aaronson quite a bit, like a lot, which is weird. Considering how hypercritical and toxic they can be, Aaronson must have had one heck of a game for them to be happy. No, seriously, I wish I had watched this game because Aaronson probably was very good. Think about the Leeds fans here for a second. They overreact to everything more towards the negative side. So if they were praising Brenden Aaronson, a player that in the past they kind of hated a lot, he probably played very well. And if you watch this game, let me know in the comment section down below. Like you know this, I don't comment on games that I haven't watched. Now with that said, the next player would have been Ethan Horvath from Cardiff City, and he's still benched at Cardiff City. Cardiff City is the worst team in the EFL Championship, and Ethan Horvath managed to lose his starting spot for them. That's how bad this guy is. He should not be with the US men's national team anymore. So next up is Aidan Morris from Middlesbrough. And on Saturday, Aidan Morris started and played the full 90 minutes for Middlesbrough during their 2-0 win over Stoke City. Last but not least, in England, we have Luca Koleosho from Burnley. And on Saturday, Koleosho started as a right winger and played the full 90 minutes for Burnley during their 0-0 draw with Oxford United. Now we're going to leave England and go to Scotland to talk about the players or the Americans that play for Celtic, and they are Austin Trusty and Cameron Carter-Vickers. And on Saturday, Trusty started and played the full 90 minutes for Celtic during their 6-0 win over St. Johnstone. Carter-Vickers was not available due to a minor toe injury. He is, however, expected to be available for them during the midweek in the Champions League. So essentially, Trusty probably started because Carter-Vickers was not available. Alright everyone, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to drop a like before you go, and don't forget that this week, this very week right here, is the very first US Men's National Team Pochettino roster release. I'm excited, I'm looking forward to it. We're going to do a full coverage of it. But before you go, I have a question for you if you made it this far in the video. Is Christian Pulisic the best player in CONCACAF right now? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below if you made it this far. Thank you very much for watching and have a great day.